what he does, but I know that there are a lot of people who are finding a lot of relief from his procedure through acupuncture. And please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, Dr. Liebell from Virginia Beach, who left at 4:30 this morning today.
We often hear the expression, you're learning something new every day. This isn't necessarily true. What is more accurate is that every day you have the potential, you have the opportunity to learn something that you didn't know about, that maybe has been around a long time. And I'm going to talk about a few things along those lines today. I hope you've read this quote from Nobel Prize winner physicist Max Planck. So it's kind of cliche to quote Albert Einstein at this point, but I'm going to anyway. Because what we're talking about today is about advancement in science. And I'm going to learn about some things, some of which are fairly new, some of which are not so new. And I'm going to ask folks, if we can wait till we're done to ask and answer questions.
Check your mic. Check your microphone.
Can't hear me? That's better. All right. Sorry about that, folks. Should I start over? No, fine. What we have up here, we search the internet and find out what is said about what is available for alpha-gal. Essentially, what it says is nothing. Don't eat meat. Don't get bitten by ticks. But I think everybody here knows that it's so much bigger than that. With all the wonderful information that you've gotten today about how many possible things that this can show up, how many possible ways, how many biochemical reactions might be taking place that other things are involved. So it's so much more than that. There are a lot of foods I don't like to eat, so I don't eat them. I was actually a vegan about 25 years ago. So I didn't think it was that big of a deal to not eat something that I didn't want to eat. But this is not what it's all about. Now, I've been working with tick-borne illness for quite some time, and as you see, I am dedicated to helping people that have been victimized by chronic effect of tick-borne, tick-triggered illness. And our medical system that really does not acknowledge it well enough, and has shown limited ability and accessibility towards helping. People are sick. And there are solutions to problems around this world for all kinds of things, not just things in medicine. There are safe, effective methods that were treated harshly, people that are treated harshly because what they do works too well. It isn't profitable. And that's got to stop. And terms like alternative medicine and quackery have to go away. Alternative to what? The real treatment, the real medicine? What we're talking about with alpha-gal, there is no treatment. So alternative does not apply. Now, we hear so much about healthcare and healthcare reform. But when they're talking about that, they're not talking about care, they're talking about insurance, not the treatment itself. Is the cart before the horse, as that cliche goes. And the tests are not everything. We're going to talk about that quite a bit. As far as the usefulness of blood tests, for a lot of people, it's the thing that enabled them to find out that they have alpha-gal allergy. For other people, they have told the doctors that they have it. And in many cases, with some harsh treatment, people being told they're crazy. There's no such thing as a meat allergy, and worse. Now, it seems to me that throughout human history, we should be paying a lot more attention, no matter what a person's medical situation is, to bugs. And look at all these things. It's not new. Malaria to Lyme disease, there's so many other things. I think that there's more illness that is triggered by the effects of bugs than anything else. A person walks into a doctor's office with arthritis or chronic headache, gastrointestinal problems. Shouldn't bugs and what they transmit be considered first? I think so. So how did I become involved with alpha-gal? Well, my wife Sheila, who's over there, around 2005, determined that she had Lyme disease. And unfortunately, everything that she tried did not work. In fact, antibiotics made her worse. We tried a lot of so-called alternative treatments, some of which I wasn't too thrilled about her doing. And they all failed me. Then, I read about something fascinating. I bought this book, Solomon's Molecular Therapy Textbook. That's Dr. Nader Solomon, right there. You're going to learn a lot about Dr. Solomon. That book changed my life. Dr. Solomon and the work that he's done changed my life. It's enabled me to help people get better from things that no one will even believe anyone could get better from. So years later, Sheila got well because of Dr. Solomon's treatment. It's homeopathic treatment. See, he figured out what she needed using a very sophisticated but little known evaluation method that involves the ear. Now, that may sound strange, but everything is strange until it's not. Anything that you've never heard of, you can say, well, that's weird, that's strange. I'm all right with that. I have people come to me sometimes, they'll refer to their regular doctor, and I say, does that make me your irregular doctor? Or this is my normal doctor, and I say, so does that make me your abnormal doctor? And you know what? I'll own that. Because what's my job? My job is to improve people's quality of life, help people get well. So what I'm told, that doesn't matter. I'll take your regular doctor. So who's Dr. Nader Solomon? As you can see, he served as president of the American Academy of Medical Acupuncture, which is a group of physician acupuncturists. And he has been practicing the work laid down by a true genius, a word that is bandied about rather recklessly these days. Dr. Paul Nogier, the father of auricular therapy, and I'm going to tell you all about auricular therapy today. So as you can see here, Dr. Solomon, board certified in both anesthesiology and medical acupuncture. Medical acupuncture is acupuncture done by a medical doctor. You see his training, who he is, but what's important is what he's done. What he's done for people, what he's done to enable me to have the tools to do the things that I'm able to do to help people. And this is what science is all about. This is what progress is all about. So we're going to fast forward 10 years. So Sheila started showing me these news articles about how there's a sudden rise in red meat allergy. And I read the articles. I thought, there's no rise in meat allergy. It's been going on for a long, long time. I've treated people with it. Dr. Solomon's treated people with it. I didn't think there was anything special. One of the reasons is lots of folks that suffer the effects of tick-borne infection develop all kinds of allergies that they never had before. So, using Dr. Solomon's method, I treated people with meat allergy years ago. Didn't know about alpha-gal. Didn't know what it was. Once I started reading these articles, then I went to the medical journals, and I read every paper out there. But wow, this is really interesting, the chemical mechanism behind it, how the alpha-gal sugar gets into a person's bloodstream and triggers this allergy. Well, I also realized it didn't matter if we knew about it or not because of the method. We'll get to that. Now I'm going to show you a lot of background, a lot of science stuff, because, as I said before, people say they learn something new every day. I'm going to show you some stuff that's old. But doctors tell people, well, that's baloney. And I say, well, have you read the medical journals? Have you read the papers? You're giving an opinion on something that's not based on fact. So I read every one of those papers, and I knew it was my obligation to bring effective treatment to the public and to conduct research. I want to make it very, very clear. I'm not here making a claim for anything other than the effort to help this problem. And it's very simple. It's being done, but we need to prove it on a large scale. And I think everybody here knows that the consequences of alcohol allergy are far beyond just not being able to eat food. And you can see I listed several things here of all the deep, far-reaching consequences. People's family dynamics, a lot of fear and paranoia with every move you make. It's not a fun way to live. I call it being under alcohol house arrest. Because I've seen people that the limitation that this allergy has on their lives is extraordinary. I saw a young man about a month ago, about 21 years old, basically a shut-in, because his reactivity is so bad, his sensitivity is so bad, that he drives with his windows open past a restaurant or a house somewhere where meat is cooking, he ends up in emergency. That's not just a food choice, right, folks? So, there are people that are better already, but we need lots of people getting better, and we need to document it. So, I am starting out by seeing cases in my office, and my mentor, Dr. Solomon, seeing cases in his office, and other acupuncturists who are qualified and trained by Dr. Solomon, hopefully as quickly as possible, seeing more, because people can indeed get better. Now, I understand that most people will not believe it. And that's you learn something new every day part, so let's get into it here. So knowledge, information is for sharing. It's not for keeping secrets. And there are things that people say are secrets, they're not secrets. But people have to be told that they exist. And professionals have to be willing to read, to actually investigate beyond what they already know, assuming that they know everything. There's a ton of stuff I don't know, and right now, I don't know things that I don't know that I don't know. And a year from now, I'm going to know something that I wish I knew a year earlier, and I'll be kicking myself saying, I wish I knew then what I know now. So that's what I'm doing, is I'm conducting a clinical trial in my office, and I really appreciate all the folks that have come from many states away and driven hours and hours for the chance at getting help. The response has been far greater than I ever anticipated. And my patient, Nancy Frickson, right over there, is responsible for a lot of it. Because there's something about Nancy that motivated people to look at my information and say, hey, you know what? I want to give that a try. I want to at least see if I have a chance, if there's realistic hope for help. And so she has been instrumental, ongoing, in helping a lot of folks. So Dr. Solomon's auricular allergy treatment, SAAT. You can see a little clip of the U.S. patent application. Dr. Solomon published the study 2014, a while ago. 40 cases of many types of allergies with this treatment, gone within 3 weeks and not returned. And he presented these findings to a medical symposium. And what puzzles me is how doctors can go to a medical symposium and see something extraordinary that they could learn if they wanted to, and yet so few have. In my opinion, every acupuncturist, physician acupuncturist, licensed acupuncturist, whatever the credentials are in the world, should already know how to do this. And there are some here that are already planning and are signed up to attend to go to his next training. Thank goodness for them, because Dr. Solomon and I can't take care of everybody ourselves. All right, so really important things. Okay? I'm heading research to document and prove the merits of SAAT, resolving alpha-gal allergy. I've made no claims or promises to anybody in print or verbally. And every person that's come to me has been an unsolicited and willing participant to request my services with the hope for the chance of getting help. It's not a replacement for conventional medical diagnosis. We need all facets of medicine. We need all the different minds, all the disciplines working together towards helping folks. It's not competition. But it's really important to understand that this is not a disease-based treatment approach. It's based on wellness. And that may sound like words, but it's so much more. And it is not a temporary suppression of symptoms. It is a corrective treatment. The good news, it's not in conflict with any other medical treatment. So there are things that we have to overcome just to even get into the neighborhood of understanding. I call those the mental hoops to jump through. Overcoming the assumption that alpha-gal allergy is permanent. There are lots of folks already that know that that's not true. Our bodies possess the ability to heal from virtually anything. And there have been discoveries made throughout human history where problems have been figured out that we thought couldn't be solved. This is one of them. Okay? Very important, it's not dependent on confirmation through blood tests. We like them, we're interested in them, we're interested in researching and seeing the effects of SAAT on the blood work, but it's not our measuring tool. Now there are people out there that, through various forums on the internet and otherwise, that have been critical of a lot of good folks that are trying to help. What terrible people we are. We're trying to help people with a serious problem. But there are also automatic biases towards drugless methods. And I've had a career of 27 years where I will say it's not so easy being me from the standpoint of when you know you can help people with things, wonderful, safe procedures that no one believes. And we want to take the believing part out of it by having proof, as much proof as possible. It's not for everybody. Not everybody's willing to do things radically different. People will cling to their philosophies and their beliefs regardless of results of what's going on around. People think that they're special for being skeptical about things that they don't have a clue about, but they'll give an opinion, and they'll have all kinds of reasons not to do things. Or maybe they'll just dabble with something and not do it correctly or completely or follow advice, and then they'll just say, well, it doesn't work. Our beliefs can move us forward or hold us back. So if you believe it can't be helped, even a little bit, you're not going to move forward. And I've seen it. I've seen people not try and wilt away, but the vast majority who have tried blossom back like a flower that will be born. And we want as many blossoms as we can get. It's really sad that we have to address this, but this is what's going on. There are people that are angry out there at all the folks, myself included, who are trying to help this problem. What is their beef? What is their problem? You have to start somewhere. You start with ideas, and then you take actions, and then you test things, and you follow scientific procedures, rather than just baselessly criticizing things that are not understood. Is skepticism a virtue? People are using the term like it is. Well, I'm going to break that down. Didn't know you were going to get an English lesson today. Skepticism is an attitude of doubt or disbelief. But baseless rejection or doubt is merely ignorance, veiled in skepticism. It is not virtuous nor is it praiseworthy. Skepticism is a poor substitute for fact-seeking. Scientific thinking is a willingness to question and look at evidence. And that's what we're trying to come up with, is as much evidence as possible. And people getting better and documenting it, and them having their health restored is evidence. Do we want it to go to the highest level possible through university-based double-blind studies? Absolutely. This is the starting point, is treating people who want at least realistic hope. That's praiseworthy. Investigating new ideas and methods. Cynicism. I've heard that term bandied about quite a bit, and quite frankly, I'm tired of it. Because if a person says, well, I'm cynical, I'm a healthy cynic, that is highly offensive. Because as you see, a cynic is someone who is suggesting that your motives are impure. It is hateful distrust. And I won't tolerate that. I don't think anybody should tolerate it. Ignorance or unfamiliarity or inexperience regarding existing medical science or technology doesn't make it untrue. So there's a lot of science that people, professionals, lay public, have never read. They don't know it exists. There's a lot of science, a lot of knowledge that's been around for decades that people don't know exists. It doesn't make it untrue. So when the public doesn't know that safe and effective and affordable treatment exists, suffering continues, money is wasted, and ignorance persists. And I'm here today to break that ignorance, one person at a time if I have to. It's really unfortunate that we have to even take the time to go through all of this aspect of it, but it's critical, because we're talking about an internationally accepted and recognized method that the public has no clue about. Now, as a student from kindergarten onward, I never liked history as a subject. I was always at odds with the whole expression, history repeats itself. So I thought, isn't the idea of studying history so that we folks don't keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again? And yet that's what happens. Every time anybody comes up with some kind of new scientific breakthrough or an idea or something to consider, rejection is the initial reaction. And in many cases, for years, decades, and sometimes centuries. Here's one of them. Dr. Ignaz Semmelweis. Anybody ever heard of him? All right, I think I still one. Think it's a good idea to wash your hands before delivering a baby? Well, they said he was crazy for suggesting that. Women were dying during childbirth because they were delivered with dirty, germ-laden hands. What a crazy thing to suggest, but in his time, it was perceived as such. And look at this poor guy. Went out to try to save lives. What a bad man. Committed to an insane asylum where he was beaten by the staff and died, ironically, from infection. Is that appalling? Yes. And this still is going on right now. Because every time someone comes up with an idea, it is treated harshly. Show of hands, heard of Louis Pasteur? Okay. Germ theory of disease, the idea of germs. We accept that as truth. Now, violent resistance from the medical community when he introduced it in the 1850s. Father of genetics, Gregor Mendel, because he wasn't considered a scientist. He's the person that figured out laws of genetics that are still understood and accepted today. Did he get credit for it? Was he treated nicely? Oh, no, he was not. 35 years after presenting his ideas. Now, people out there with alpha-gal allergy want to wait 35 years before the public's told it's okay to get the help that helps? I wouldn't want to wait that long. Anybody here heard Dr. Peyton Rouse? 1911 demonstrated that cancer was largely from viruses. 2 decades of quitting cancer study research. Got the Nobel Prize 55 years later after his discovery. But as you see, 20% of human cancers have infection-related causes, and that is the accepted scientific knowledge. Now, I'm going to be talking more about Dr. Nader Solomon, who I think deserves the Nobel Prize. I want to help him earn it, because he figured out something from the works of another genius and took it to another level. So let's get into it. So conventional medicine addresses allergies biochemically. And this is where we have to really change our thinking that there are other ways to look at the human body. Solomon's auricular allergy treatment addresses allergies bioenergetically. See what all of that means. All cells and tissues generate electric currents. Undisputed scientific fact. Now, the EKG, the EEG, the EMG, MRI, these are all energy medicine devices. Well, by using that term, the public is not comfortable with energy medicine. But those things are all indeed energy medicine. Just not called it. Well, what we're talking about here is all about energy. Let's look at some of the definitions. We need to be comfortable with these ideas because the public is taught that acupuncture is some weird thing that's not proven. Just true. Detection and correction of energetic disturbances and weaknesses in the body using various medical devices and human observation. Attention to vibrational frequencies, including those of electricity, magnetism, heat, light, sound, gravity, pressure, and mechanical energy. Treatment involving various procedures that focus on these factors to support the repair of tissue. The working principle is that energy is the medicine. All of those medical technologies are energy medicine. A lot of things are diagnostic in nature. There are some things that are treatment in nature as well. Electrical therapy, ultrasound, those are energy medicine treatments. Anybody ever heard of Dr. Harold Saxton Burr? Professor Emeritus of Anatomy at Yale Medical School published 93 scientific papers on nervous system bioenergetic phenomena over a 40-year period. Discoverer of the hormone estrogen. The electrodynamic fields which control the human organism are signposts of the most promising trail that future explorers can follow. And that's the trail that we want to lead down. By the way, none of his work is mentioned in biology textbooks anywhere. You can actually find these papers online and read them. They're really complicated. But they're worth looking at. His books as well. The reluctance to pursue research with bioenergetic treatments is pretty significant, even though the first sign of diminished health is vibrational or electromagnetic. Remember again, technology like the EKG, that is electromagnetic thing that is being checked. More Nobel Prize-winning scientists. Every culture, every tradition before ours, healing was accomplished by moving energy. And what we're going to be discussing about alpha-gal treatment is about moving energy. Yes, more cliche quotation of Einstein, but I'm doing it because it's pertinent. View the perspective that human beings are complex networks of energy fields that coexist with physical cellular systems. The integration of energy medicine with chemical and physical medicine creates a truly complete system. The term integrated medicine is used a little bit more these days to suggest a mixture of different disciplines. And that's a good thing. We need bioenergetic evaluations because we cannot ignore the forces that breathe life into our human machine. Show of hands, anybody heard of Dr. Claude Bernard? That is usually the response. Dr. Bernard was a contemporary of Louis Pasteur, talking about the germ theory of disease. But what Dr. Bernard said was that the germ is nothing. The terrain is everything. By the terrain, he's referring to the human immune system, the ability of the body to deal with microorganisms, to deal with germs. On his deathbed, Louis Pasteur said Dr. Bernard was right. And if you Google him, you'll see he is known as one of the greatest of scientists. All right, so let's get into the ear. Is ear acupuncture an ancient Chinese secret? It is not. It's French-made. Dr. Paul Nogier, from 1908 to 1996, is responsible for introducing this science. He's discovered a new way to reduce human suffering through stimulating the ear based on principles of neuroanatomy. And I am as proud as a person can be to be a student of Dr. Solomon and be amongst the few doctors in the world that are correctly maintaining and advancing the work laid out by Dr. Nogier. How was it discovered? In the 50s, Dr. Nogier noticed a strange deep scar in this area of the ear where the red dot is, and found out that it was created by a local woman. She was not a professional of any kind, but she was helping people, so they kind of let it slide. She was intentionally burning an area in the ear to relieve back thigh pain, which we call today sciatica. Dr. Nogier observed it and he tried it out. He had some success. And then he tried it with acupuncture needles. And he had even more success. Trying to figure out why. Why did it work? So he correlated sciatic pain and that spot with the fifth lumbar vertebra. That's where the nerves come out that go down the leg. And he discovered something previously unknown to science, including thousands of years of Chinese acupuncture. Here's what he noticed. The human ear is the same shape as the human fetus. The outer ear is not for hearing. It has nothing to do with hearing. We've got a big old hole on the side of our head that sound goes in there just fine. These are not satellite dishes. But neurologically, when something goes wrong in the body, there are electrical resistance changes on the skin of the ear that directly correlate with that part of the body. He presented his discovery in France in 1957. Remember what I said earlier? You learn something new every day? 1957 is a little while ago. His work spread to Germany, translated into Chinese. So the Chinese learned from the Frenchmen about an entire acupuncture system previously unknown anywhere. And they proclaimed him in 1958 the father of auricular therapy. So auricular is pertaining to the auricle, which is the medical term for the outer ear. So Dr. Nogier spent 30 years of researching and advancing auricular therapy, yet, just like all that history that I love, most acupuncturists, including the Chinese, maintain the same basic approach that Dr. Nogier laid down for 60 years. Sort of a recipe-based approach. Here's a point for this, here's a point for that, here's a point for this, here's a point for that. It doesn't work that way. Or it doesn't work well enough, let's put it. So his highly developed approach, further advanced by Dr. Nader Solomon, is based on what's called cartographical mapping of the body on the ear. And I'm going to explain quite a bit what that means in a second. So it's not a fixed acupuncture point system. It's not like there's an alpha-gal point. I've had acupuncturists email me and say, can you tell me where to put the needle to make alpha-gal go away? If it only were that simple. So it's based on zones of bioelectric activity in the body. All right. Not a geography lesson here, but what is cartography? A cartogram is a special kind of map. So it's a map combined with statistics. Here is a cartographical map representing the money spent on healthcare in the world. Looks a little different. So you see the cartogram as the map, but it's combined with statistics. So you can see, you look at the United States, it's pretty bloated. And we look at another cartographical map, the world population. Looks a little different also. So hang on for a second to understand how this pertains to the ear, and we're going to get to how it pertains to alpha-gal, by the way, I promise you that. Neuroscientists create what's called brain mapping, and those are cartograms, which represent parts of the brain and their associated functions and connections through the nerves. Dr. Nogier discovered that the brain projects a three-dimensional holographic cartographic image of the body to the ear that corresponds with energy interference patterns. So it's not that there is a spot for every part of the body, a pinpoint spot. There are areas that are a projection, like the cartographical map. And here are the updated versions of it from Dr. Nick Solomon. And this is where it starts to look a little strange. So we got these three weird-looking pictures of the ear, kind of look like pepperoni pizzas. And if you look closely, you see all parts of the body drawn on the ears in these different zones. Now these are quick educational representations of areas on the ear for which, if there is a problem with that part of the body, somewhere in that zone, there's a pinpoint spot where there's a change in electrical activity that we use instruments to determine. All right, let's get even deeper into it. I know it's a lot of stuff, but it's really important. Because I've seen the comments from people in forums, I've taken the emails, I've heard the questions about all the doubters and say, well, this business with the fetus on the ear, well, I don't believe that. This isn't the tooth fairy we're talking about. A cortical homunculus. What's a homunculus? It means little man. What you're seeing there is a picture area of the brain. A homunculus is any model that represents the particular function. So this is that cartographical map stuff we're talking about there. You see here, it's a picture out each area of the brain senses and controls different organs and tissues. And it's used in modern neuroscience to map the brain. So you see the giant thumb. The thumb is really, really large because lots of brain surface, a lot of brain attention has to go to the function of the thumb. So there's more area on the ear for the thumb as well. We have mysterious and vast connections, and scientists have figured out these explanations and are pursuing more. And that's what we're doing, folks, is we're pursuing more. Nothing more, but nothing less. Electrical stimulation of part of the brain can produce movement or tingling sensations in the corresponding parts of the body. So you see a little bit more about that here. It's kind of how our brain sees our body. You're seeing areas on the brain and the areas that control and the size of it. And so you're seeing this being mapped on the brain. That's what the ear is. It's a mapping of the brain through the ear. How much brain nerve involvement determines how big the area is, not the size of the actual body part. And you have different areas for movement as well as for sensation. And it varies from person to person. So for example, a person that has great artistic ability may have a larger area of the brain allocated to that. The human thumb, as I said before, a mouse's whiskers, a mouse's brain has a very large area on the cortical homunculus. Remember I said before, learn something new every day. 1937, a while ago. These are confirmed scientific principles. And anyone that criticizes them has not read the science. I got the references. All of these things. Scientists have figured these things out. So if you electrically stimulate a part of the brain, it can produce movement or tingling sensation in corresponding parts of the body. And guess what? You can do that through the ear. And it's proven science. Needs more work? That's what we're doing. 2001 study published in the medical journal Neuroimage further established and confirmed the principle of mapping on the ear using a technology called magnetoencephalography and functional MRI. Functional MRI, we'll see some pictures of it in a moment. That's the thing where you see parts of the brain lit up on an image. So whatever area is stimulated, if a person sees an image or has some emotional experience, it'll show up on the functional MRI. Dr. Nogier figured out long ago, decades ago, that a large surface area of the ear is correlated with the thumb. And it matches up perfectly with neuroscientists' brain hacking. Remember what I said about skeptics before? They don't get a free ride. They don't get to say, well, I'm skeptical of that. I don't believe that. Go do the research. Go read the materials. Know what the scientists who've actually been involved know, and then question. But don't blindly or baselessly criticize. Nothing weird or unscientific at all about auricular therapy. Its connections to brain mapping and the medically known principle of homunculus and the basis in neuroanatomy. So, beneficial stimulus of the ear is not fantasy or fiction. It's validated science. And like any other science, we need more development. And that's what we're doing. And we want as many professionals involved as possible. Ear acupuncture, auricular therapy, hundreds of papers in real scientific journals. They can be read by anybody. But if you don't read them, you can't say, well, that's bogus. I don't believe that. Liebell's crazy. Solomon doesn't know what he's talking about. Do some reading, professionals, because auricular therapy is taught all around the world. Thousands of European physicians do ear acupuncture. Mention functional MRI. Again, more medical studies, proof of the effects of ear acupuncture on the brain. These are the functional MRI pictures. You can see the areas lit up that correlate with where a stimulus is taking place. Dr. Hiroshi Nakajima, the Director General of the World Health Organization, praised Dr. Paul Nogier in 1990. Not just today, not today, in 1990. Acknowledging the contribution of Dr. Paul Nogier's work with ear acupuncture auricular therapy and encouraging doctors all over the world to use it and learn it. Learn something new every day. What's in a name? There have been scientists that have, in my opinion, hijacked Dr. Nogier's work and given it a different name, calling it new discovery. Publishing research calling it transcutaneous auricular vagal nerve stimulation. Good studies, good science showing that stimulation of the ear helps with depression. We're just not acknowledging the background of it. It's based on ear acupuncture, but actually done in a very, very broad manner. It's actually done better. More science, more what's in the name. Non-invasive vagal nerve stimulation. Same thing, that's ear acupuncture. Repackaged, republished, without any reference to Dr. Nogier's work. But doctors may look at this and say, oh, well, this is published medical science, that's legit. We need more of that, but with the correct terminology and acknowledging the right people. Neuromodulation, they're calling it also. Oracles could transpire to be the most affordable target for non-invasive manipulation of the central nervous system's function. That's what we're going to be talking about, folks. That's what Solomon's auricular allergy treatment is transpiring to target the ear for non-invasive treatment in this case, for allergy. Just a little more functional MRI. And a little more. Because it's out there. See, there's science. For those who say, oh, well, there's no proof, we don't know anything about it, that's made up, it's alternative medicine. We know how it works. But critics say, oh, well, we don't know how it works. Yeah, we know a lot. Or that it couldn't work. Well, it does. People have experienced it already. Those that have gotten better know that it works. And by the way, I'm not just talking about alpha now. This is the new frontier that once I realized that this was a global problem, that we've already had a solution, that it just had to be pursued. Another one of my great favorites is the placebo effect. It isn't straightforward. These are weak arguments. And the public is told that only pharmaceutical approaches are research and that we know how they work. And something like hereafter, we don't know how it works. Well, how does aspirin work? Anybody know how aspirin works? You wouldn't be alone, because it wasn't known until 1995 how aspirin works. Dates back to ancient Egypt. Hippocrates, 2,500 years ago. 1966 New York Times Magazine, the wonder drug nobody understands. But it wasn't until 1995 that medical science actually had a clue of why it worked. Didn't stop it from being used and helping people. So I say, what if we don't understand fully how Solomon's vertical allergy treatment works for alpha-gal? We think we do, but what if we don't, and it still works? It's okay to use aspirin. By the way, how aspirin was treated when it came on the scene, that is the quote from the head of Bayer's Pharmacological Institute rejecting the invention of aspirin. Typical Berlin hot air. The product is worthless. Well, it clearly hasn't been worthless. Aspirin's been very helpful for a lot of people for a long time. You know what it replaced? Top painkiller. How to make the factory's workers feel funny. And then aspirin was aggressively marketed so it could replace heroin. Ideas move slowly in this world. We want to accelerate them right here. We don't want to pick on drug-free methods. Drug-free methods get picked on a whole lot. I've had a whole career of having to explain a lot just for the opportunity to help people with the safest possible treatments that I could come up with and learn about. But let's take a look at here. Although allergen immunotherapy, allergy shots, been part of learned allergy practice for a century, it is only in recent years that cellular and molecular mechanisms which underlie its clinical efficacy have been elucidated. And that's from the Medical Journal in 2011. Allergen-specific immunotherapy introduced 100 years ago. And what this, from a recent medical journal, 2016, says the only causal treatment of allergic diseases. And I don't agree with that. From personal experience. It also says the currently only known causative effective treatment of IgE-mediated allergy. The mechanism, as well as the mechanisms of allergic diseases and other immunologically conditioned diseases, remain unclear and are the subject of detailed studies of clinicians and researchers around the world. There's nothing wrong with that, trying to figure out more. There's substantial need for research. So let's not just pick on something that's strange and new to those that don't know about it. Anybody ever heard of Dr. Oshman, James Oshman? You can see what he says. Many therapists who work daily and successfully with human energy systems have felt alienated from the sciences that provide the logical and rational foundation for conventional medicine. Close look at energy medicine resolve this unnecessary confusion and controversy. These methods can often help a patient who's not found relief from more orthodox approaches. Harvard-trained PhD, Yale professor with NIH grants, was originally taught that such healing miracles cannot happen. The fact is they do. Science can now help us understand and celebrate. We're going to celebrate a whole lot in the year ahead. Understanding auricular therapy is not easy. Science is not easy. If it was easy, everyone would be a scientist. But I think there's a lot that we can break down so that people can understand it. And I love this diagram here because you can see the complexity of the nerves that go to the ear. All these branches that go directly from the brain. I showed you those papers before where they're hijacking Dr. Nogier's work, the vagus nerve. If you Google vagus nerve, you're going to find a whole lot of stuff for a whole lot of medical conditions. And it's all what Nogier was looking at decades and decades ago. When there's a problem in your body, detectable, electrically detectable points will show up on the ear within zones that correspond to the organ or tissue that are involved. And this is what Dr. Solomon teaches. This is what he taught me. This part of the brain, called the reticular formation, it's like a relay station. When there's something going on in the body, it goes through there and it processes it electrically to the ear. And those trained to detect it, that know how to detect it and what to do with it, can do extraordinary things for us. Here's just another example. Different area of the ear. Chronic neck pain. Somewhere in that area, we can detect areas. I am actually a neck specialist, so I've used this in my practice for a very long time. Dr. Solomon's amazing discovery. Part 2. So I had to bring you through a lot just to get to this part. Because I just tell you, well, here's how we do this treatment. We're going to find an area on your ear, and we're going to put a 3 millimeter sliver of sterilized stainless steel, and in 3 weeks, your red meat allergy could be gone. You might want to know a little more. So that's why I'm giving that back. There won't be a quiz, maybe some short essays or true or false. But here's Dr. Solomon's discovery. And it's not that recent a discovery. Over 10 years ago, he revealed that electrical conductivity changes on the ear, correlating with a large region on the ear with the liver, that expertly and precisely delivered acupuncture treatment could shut down an allergy in 3 weeks, regardless of the mechanism that created that allergy. So when I told you earlier how he taught me how to do this years ago, and we know both of us have treated many cases of meat allergy long before we knew what alpha-gal even was. I think this is fascinating. A person receiving a liver transplant can acquire the allergies that the donor suffered from. That phenomenon is not seen in any other form of organ transplant. So you get an organ transplant, you get a liver transplant, now you got the allergies of the donor. That tells you something about the liver. So you see that phenomenon called passive transfer of IgE has been scientifically established since the 1980s, not seen with transplant of any other organ. So here we have on the ear what's called the Solomon allergy zone. There's that mechanism as before, the brain to the liver. Now I like to refer and explain this treatment as your liver is a giant circuit breaker. I don't know if this is correct in the scientific realm, but I think it's a good explanation. And I would love to be involved in research to find out the specifics of it. We'll look at the liver as being a circuit breaker box. Maybe it's got 1 million breakers, none of them are labeled, and you're wearing a blindfold. But when that tick bites, it flips that circuit breaker. And there it is on the ear. That's the Solomon allergy zone. And this, to me, is Nobel Prize worthy discovery. So somewhere in that area with each person, there's a pinpoint spot that we practitioners have to find in the context of our evaluation to figure out where this tiny, tiny ear acupuncture needle has got to go. And I have here, folks want to pass this around and look at it, I happen to package some of those acupuncture needles. Start here. I also have a rubber ear. And in this rubber ear, you'll see 2 of them inserted. You'll see the little circle part, that's the handle. Pass them out and check them out. They're tiny. There are folks that thought like you're going to leave with a needle sticking out of their head. That is definitely not the case. You can see the picture there, the thumb with the needle next to it. So it's inserted horizontally under the skin. It's not sticking straight down, it's actually we're finding the spot. That's the whole process in itself. It goes under the point that's detected. Usually there's just 1 point, occasionally there's 2, and it's covered with tape to secure it. And it needs to stay for 3 weeks. Easily removed at home. It has to stay for 3 weeks because that's what Dr. Solomon's research shows. That's the period of time to essentially flip the circuit breaker reliably. Now, I think we've both seen that there are people that the moment that needle goes in, that breaker's flipped back. We don't want to take that chance because there are some people that need the full 3 weeks of ongoing stimulus for it to take place. So a person doesn't have to come to an office and have treatment every day for 21 days. You're taking it with you. That's one of the things that makes it easy, affordable, and effective. I get asked this all the time. Why is Solomon's auricular allergy treatment done on the right ear? Because the liver is mostly on the right side of the body. It's not that complicated. It can be done on the left ear, but it's better on the right. Now, there are various techniques that practitioners have to use to get to the point of finding where this goes. That's a picture of Dr. Paul Nogier. He developed something called the vascular autonomic signal. It is fairly complicated, so I'm not going to try to give you a whole talk on that, but it is the intentional triggering of a reflex of the cardiovascular system for the purposes of figuring out where the needle goes. Most of the people that have come to me have seen me use a different technique involving muscle strength on the fingers, which I'm going to show you. Dr. Solomon shows practitioners 3 different ways. There are many practitioners that have learned certain systems, so he gives them the opportunity to use what fits them best. Most folks have seen me use this, the O-ring testing, where we're testing muscle strength to evaluate the effects of a stimulus. It is a valid medical measurement approach. It requires skill, knowledge, and practice performed within the context of SAAT or many other medical applications. It's not a parlor trick. Pseudoscience, as a lot of ignorant and foolish skeptics will claim. It is a bioenergetic evaluation method that provides valuable clues without exposing people to radiation, imaging dyes, and other hazardous diagnostic testing factors. This man, Dr. Yoshiaki Omura, is internationally known for his usage of it. In fact, Dr. Omura has a patent in its usage for the detection of cancer. Now, this is an example of something that Dr. Omura has published over 270 papers, and most cardiologists, most oncologists never read his papers. Doesn't make it untrue, and you can look these up, by the way, if you're ever interested. Just a quick look at his resume there, in case anyone doubts the scientific validity and the background. Real scientists doing real phenomenal scientific work. But what you'll find is usually the folks that are not selling a high-ticket commodity or something that's going to have a big pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. People that give advice that doesn't cost a fortune. Or telling people things not to do so that they don't get sick. Those don't have business value, but they have great health value. Principle of resonance is a very important factor. And we can use physical samples of substance. If we take a physical piece of meat, just hold it in our hand, it will weaken your body. It's kind of like kryptonite to Superman. And that's the one thing that harms Superman's kryptonite. He just has to be near it. We want to look at alpha-gal as folks' kryptonite. Our job is to make you impervious to kryptonite. So we use what is called a bioresonance sample. It's an electronically prepared simulation of the electromagnetic frequencies of the substance. They're little glass vials with liquid in them. We have hundreds and hundreds of them for different substances. And we use those to see if there is a response, a weakening with the body, and then we also use it to see if there's a strengthening as a result of the acupuncture treatment on the needle. So resonance is when two sources vibrate at the same frequency, discovered by Galileo in the 1600s, and it is the mechanism by which all vibrations are generated. The two separate objects vibrate at the same frequency, they become energetically connected without touching. You can open your car with a push of a button. That's a frequency. We have these little rectangles called cell phones that you can see anything in the world now. So holding a sample of a substance and something making you weak or strong is not phantasmagorical. Resonance phenomenon is widely observed in nature and greatly used in technology. Everything has a resonance frequency. Hit it or pluck it, it vibrates at a specific rate. That's what we call a frequency. That's where musical instruments have. Each distinct musical note has a unique frequency. Now these are the factors that go into figuring out and doing this treatment. All right, finally, SAAT and alpha-gal. What if it doesn't work in one treatment? That's the goal of it. It's what we usually see. What if it doesn't just work in one treatment? Is that tragic? What if it only reduced symptoms or sensitivity, but didn't completely eliminate the problem? Is that tragic? It's not good enough for me. But it's pretty darn good. What if a person had to have it done more than once? Or what if I, a human being, didn't get it right? And I probably won't get it right on some people. But I'll try again and I will. The public's accustomed to a different standard. According to the American Academy of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology, requiring bi-weekly shots for allergy shots to a build-up phase taking up to 1 year to progress to a maintenance phase, which may last 3 to 5 years. Well, we're talking with Solomon's auricular allergy treatment, a one-time treatment that's corrective and permanent in most cases. I understand. Nobody believes that because this is what the medical standard has been. People are allergic to a lot of things beyond just alcohol. So forgive us if every problem isn't gone from one treatment. This is a preliminary approach to introduce proof that the alpha-gal allergy can go away. Numbers game. So some folks are coming in having had extensive blood work done. And some people years of checking to see if their IgE alpha-gal numbers have gone down as a result of staying away from meat and whole exposure to alpha-gal. People have seen the numbers go up, they've seen them go down, they've seen them be the same. We know that folks that have sometimes very, very low numbers have very, very severe reactivity severe sensitivity. You see some people with high numbers that can eat some meat, that can touch anything they want. But if they go overboard, then they got a problem. So clearly the numbers do not correlate with severity. Now, I'm quite certain that even when people no longer have the alpha-gal allergy, if they have blood tests, there will probably still be a footprint. And this is what the immunologists know to be true, that when blood tests are done, especially, it may list a whole lot of allergies. Like if I did a panel on myself, and I did this once, maybe 15 so years ago, did a panel of like 300 foods. I was kind of curious because we're having some testing done for one of our kids. I think, you know what, I want to have a test on myself as like a control group, because I'm not allergic to anything that I know of. So I ran it on myself also. I was allergic to a bunch of things, notably lemons. Now I want to tell you how unallergic to lemons I was and am. When I was in elementary school, kids used to gather around me to watch me eat a whole lemon without making a sourpuss face. And I can still do it today. But you know what, I decided, well, I'm not going to be a know-it-all. This blood report says I'm highly allergic to lemons and a bunch of other foods, nutritious foods that I would normally eat and not notice any problem. So you know what, I'm going to eliminate all these things in the list for 3 months. And maybe I don't know how good I'm supposed to feel. I think I missed maybe 3 days of school and all my schooling. I missed 5 days of work due to illness in 27 years. I'm not bragging about that. It's just, in the context of things, it's that I wasn't allergic to lemons. Never was, and I'm still not. So blood doesn't tell us everything. It's a really important tool because there are a lot of folks that would never know that they have alpha-gal without it. But it's not our measuring stick for the effectiveness of SAAT treatment. Said before, higher numbers don't mean worse symptoms or greater sensitivity. And that's what we want to see in research. We want to see people having the treatment done and then having ongoing follow-up blood work to find out and see what the trends are and whether they matter or not. The old expression, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Now in this case, the proof of the meat is in the eating. Or the touching, or being around, or being able to drive down the street, past your neighbor's grilling, and not end up in the hospital. So alpha-gal action, but no reaction. That's what we're looking for. The blood is interesting. The blood can be important. It can be a life statement. But as far as our criteria for the success of treatment, people are wondering, well, I had the treatment done, now I'm going to go back to my doctor, a regular doctor, as opposed to be a regular doctor, and have the blood work done to make sure that they're better. It's not going to work that way. It might, maybe accidentally, but thus far there's been no evidence that that's the case. So as you know well from the whole alpha-gal situation, it's not necessarily the food itself, but something in the food. So alpha-gal is not the only food allergy that is from part of the food. There's a lot of stuff that's kind of gross because peanut allergy suffers. It's not the peanuts in some cases. Sometimes it's fungus, molds on the peanuts. This one's really icky. You might not want to eat chocolate again after this. It hasn't stopped me. But some people think they're allergic to chocolate. They're not allergic to chocolate. They're allergic to cockroaches. Yeah. It's the sugar that's added in chocolate, especially maybe some of that alpha-gal sugar. But it's a lot of things with insect DNA. But think about this, folks, that every plant crop is going to have insect DNA. That's just nature. It's going to be that way, but that can be what a person is allergic to. And those are things that we actually address with solid crystal allergy technique all the time. This is really important. There are folks that are having successful treatment and they will eat pure meat, test things out tiny amount for those that are not highly reactive. A lot of allergies can preservatives. So people think in terms of preservatives as being toxins, and they are, but they can also be allergens. We don't like that this is true, but basically anything can be an allergen. And there are some substances that are both toxic and allergic, which is kind of annoying, but these are the facts of life. So a lot of folks that have alpha-gal have a lot of other health problems. So I told you that I got into this as a result of my wife Sheila having Lyme disease. Dr. Solomon himself years ago had Lyme disease, and we saw that people develop all kinds of allergies triggered by infection. Well, I think people with alpha-gal have a lot of other problems too, and a lot of other allergies also. And that's why it's really, really important for anybody that is having the treatment done, especially those that their purpose for coming is to eat the steak as soon as possible. You should never test things out for restaurants. And the work that was taught to you earlier, which was great, about all precautions with restaurants, is so important because there's so many circumstances where it can't be avoided to eat out. But as far as testing the response of this treatment, it must not be done at restaurants because it is loaded with so much stuff that you could be allergic to, and you may have the exact same symptoms that say that it's the alpha-gal. It is not. Any packaged vegetables, and a restaurant gets packaged vegetables. They're not growing it from the farm and chopping it up fresh too long. Loaded with preservatives. There are burgers at restaurants that are loaded with preservatives, and a lot of people are allergic to that too. So don't ever test at restaurants. And by the way, anybody that comes for treatment does not get direction from me to go out and eat meat for 3 weeks. And there are people that are just doing that and not following the really, really simple rules. There are folks that are fume reactive that should not, in any way, shape, or form, anytime soon, test eating meat. They don't hear it from me verbally. They don't ever see that anywhere in writing. But there are folks that'll do it anyway. There are folks that can't wait 3 weeks. They haven't eaten meat in 15 years. They can't go to their neighbor's house where they're grilling and smell the food cooking without having hives. But they can't wait 3 weeks before going to Wendy's. Okay? This is not difficult. We don't want to test the results at restaurants. There are folks, I treated a lady 30 years, she's had alpha-gal. Of course, it wasn't 30 years that she knew it as a diagnosis, but she knows she had it that long. She will not at any time be eating meat, but she wants to be able to live her life where she can go out in public, she can go to church functions, she can go to a kid's ball game, she can live on this planet without being in constant fear and paranoia. She wasn't told to go eat meat. A lot of the results from my preliminary study will take months before we know the results of it. The folks that absolutely have no intentions, nor should they start experimenting with eating things, have to notice that they don't notice the problems that they have ongoing from all of the different exposures to alpha-gal, many of which we don't even know what they are yet. Are all your symptoms from alpha-gal? No, they're not. They're from lots and lots of things. That's what happens from bugs. So I started out earlier. All doctors of every discipline have to look to the bug world first, no matter what's wrong with the person. Think about what you folks know now about the simplicity of having a doctor run an alpha-gal test. There are people that have problems for 10, 15 years. They've gone through, in some cases, $100,000 worth of tests and treatment for things, and then a savvy doctor that knew what alpha-gal was ran an inexpensive test and said, hey, you got this meat allergy, don't eat meat. And they stop, and then they feel better after all of that. But there are other things. That's an easy thing to check for. Infection, bugs, preservatives. There are folks that are putting things in the context of meals that they're allergic to. Gravies, that's another thing. Flavor packets, things that have artificial flavors and preservatives. There are folks that are allergic to alpha-gal, they're allergic to a lot of other things also. So it's not all from one thing. Now I'm ready for some questions. Anybody have?
This is not a question, it's just a comment. I have been under the care of several different physicians in the last 6 months. And I went to the cardiologist and they did a heart cardiogram. Fine. But he said, he told my daughter, she told him that I had alpha-gal. And his comment was, I don't even believe there is such a thing.
Yes, it's not believing in the tooth fairy, is it? Right? Yeah, thank you for sharing. That's really important. And the other thing is, doctors, professionals all the time, you gotta read. There are decades and decades of medical journal papers on all kinds of things related to health, not just alpha-gal. And we have this wonderful thing called the internet that anyone can look these things up, but you got to want to.
Well, I don't have a computer.
Oh, I don't mean you specifically. I'm not saying the doctors. No, you're doing great. You're doing great. I had a patient recently tell me that she went to, I don't know what kind of specialist it was, might have been family doctor, and she told the doctor she thinks that she's suffering from alpha-gal, and that doctor said that's baloney, no such thing, you're crazy. Imagine that great bedside manner right there. That's really professional, telling a person it's crazy. Now he had, doctor had his iPad. She said, look it up. It was good. I was impressed with her being assertive for her own health. She said, look it up. He looked it up on his iPad, looked at it. Oh. You know, he didn't say sorry or anything like that. Oh. He ordered the test, reluctantly, and it was positive. So, read. Doctors, read. You can't say, well, I don't know about this. This isn't true. This is bogus. This isn't scientific. This isn't proved. This isn't proven. Doctor, if someone is critical, I said, well, where's your foundation? Have you ever given a treatment? What acupuncture school you trained in? Or how did you learn? How many treatments have you given? What is your experience? Oh, none. So you are eminently qualified to criticize something you don't know anything about. And see, the only thing that I will take credit for is the willingness to learn stuff. The practice of medicine is the willingness to expand your knowledge and your skills. Dr. Solomon became curious about acupuncture. And before he didn't think much of it either. But then he saw it in action, and he was amazed, and he wanted to know more too. And then he learned about Dr. Nogier's work, and he was amazed by that. But he was also puzzled because he found out that despite all that incredible work that he did, that practitioners around the world were just sticking to the original stuff that he laid out 60 years ago and not taking the real work that he did and advancing it. And that's what Dr. Solomon has done. And his discovery of this is everyone's hope.
Can you also change the way you react to pain or pain?
I'm so glad you asked. The short answer is yes, and I've done it many times. Dr. Solomon has done it many times. I had a patient a few years ago. He had brought his little girl to me for allergy to peanut butter and pizza. I don't remember what was in the pizza that she was allergic to, but it treated her for both of those things, her two favorite things, and in 3 weeks she was able to eat them again. And he wanted me to treat him for chocolate. Of course, I checked the cockroach component of it also. He told me that if he would cough or sneeze, if he ate like a Hershey's Kiss, his nose would get reddish and he'd cough and sneeze. Nothing tragic, nothing that stopped him from having some. And I said, well, I can help you with that. And of course, they get out of here. And I did, but while I was evaluating for him, I asked him, are you allergic to anything else? And he said, no, I don't think so. I said, wait a minute, I am definitely allergic to bee stings. In fact, if I get stung by a bee, I keep an EpiPen in my truck. This fellow's a contractor, and he's actually my contractor doing repairs at my house. And they said, definitely allergic to bee stings. I keep an EpiPen. If I get stung by a bee, I will be a dead man in 3 minutes if I don't act. And I said, well, let's evaluate and treat you for that also, but don't test it. Don't test it. So I did the treatment for both chocolate and bee stings, and it was months later. He was working at my house. At my house, and I came home, and I walked in the house, and my contractor, Donnie, said, Doc, you saved my life. I said, what are you talking about? I said, don't you remember? I said, remember what? He said, you treated me for bee stings. I got stung on the neck by a bee up in your attic. And he said, Nick, his electrician said, Nick, run to my truck, get my EpiPen. By the time he came back, wait a minute, I'm fine. And I said, honey, I told you not to test that one. And I've subsequently been stung by bees again with absolutely no reaction. And I've treated other people too, and Dr. Solomon as well. So here's the thing, this is why I say Dr. Solomon deserves a Nobel Prize. Okay? He has cracked the code on something that human beings have been trying to figure out for thousands of years. Okay? Do you think anyone's believed it thus far? Nobody believes it. That's why we need to do further and further investigation and science and documentation and study to make it no longer something for people to believe in, but for people to know this is what you do. This is what you can do. I think every acupuncturist in the world should have known how to do this years ago. And then maybe you understand why. Because what Dr. Solomon figured out was something to solve one of the mysteries of the ages. There will be a lot of folks that don't like that. There are vested interests, there are money interests, there are financial interests in problems not being solved. Why I was willing to tackle alpha-gal, is I looked at it and said, wait a minute, this is a serious problem and we know what to do. We got to prove to people that it can be done. But also, there isn't a product to be sold. There isn't anything for anyone to get rich over. I'm not going to get rich from it, he's not going to get rich from it, but a lot of people will be helped because there's no product to be sold. People are on medications for life, for allergies that they have. That's big money. That's serious money. This is chump change. This is a grain of sand in the desert.
I just wondered if you ever done any studies that correlate the traditional acupuncture points, not the meridian, with the ear counts, if there's any enhancement, you get the same results using just the actual meridians on the body as opposed to the auricular.
Yeah, excellent question. The short answer is no, it doesn't work. Acupuncture has had, body traditional Chinese medicine-based acupuncture has indeed had success with allergies over many years. And that's another thing. Medical journals, acupuncture journals, which are specific to it, like there's a medical journal called Medical Acupuncture. There are studies that show that. Just remember, there's always going to be limited studies for natural-based treatments because there's no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So funding, you see all the time, you see in papers great work, great responses from small studies, from various types of natural holistic treatments. You always see at the end, larger studies need to be conducted. The problem is they don't get funding to be conducted, so then it doesn't get construed as enough validation. But the liver meridian has nothing to do with that. It's not a meridian-based system. So ear acupuncture, auricular therapy and traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture, have some commonalities, but they're really completely different. And if I may suggest to you, is throw away that book by Solomon's auricular therapy book, because I have that book. Okay? That will do nothing but confuse you. It says that the Chinese point for the kidney is over here, and the French point for it is over here. How can that be right? Okay? This will do nothing but confuse you. I started out with that book, so I know. So get the real deal, get to do real work, the real research, get Dr. Solomon. Are you an acupuncturist? Oh, you're doing it in good shape. You're going to help a lot of people. Everybody pay attention to this man over here. What's your name?
Floyd, Gary Powell.
Floyd Virginia?
Yes.
Floyd Virginia, okay. You going to learn?
Yes.
All right. You can speak to Sue Conversano right over there in Dr. Solomon's office. And, oh, is that right? You get yourself signed up for Dr. Solomon's next seminar, and you can help a lot of folks. Glad you asked. Here.
Hi, are you ready to be in the hot seat?
Sure.
Okay, so I listened to what you said, and what I think I heard is that you got a great treatment through the ear. I understand the process. I understand that you would have a needle embedded for 3 weeks. And then I heard that one way you might be able to test after the treatment how you're reacting is the tuning fork. Okay, so I'm curious about, while you want to be careful about inviting people to go out and meet after they've had the treatment, how do you progress from having the treatment to building confidence, in addition maybe to building confidence, being able to maybe test meat in a maybe controlled environment? I understand about micronestrone. And I heard about the gal who had her allergy to peanut butter. If it was a real peanut allergy, that would be every bit as anaphylactic site as algae allergies. How did you coach them to go from the treatment to permanent lifestyle?
Excellent question. Thank you for that. Yeah, so there's such a variety of circumstances with that. So we have people that are have serious reactions, emergency room anaphylaxis. Under no circumstances do I actually tell any of them to go and test me. Those are the people that are living their lives where they're having reactions, just being exposed to stuff they don't even know what they were exposed to. And that's the circumstance of don't by any means go in 3 weeks, even taste a morsel of it. Observe over the months ahead that you're not feeling sick or breaking out in hives or ending up in the emergency room on a daily basis. At no time are we coaching anybody to start eating foods. Now, a lot of folks that they are showing up with the explicit purpose of eating meat as soon as possible, okay? I make it very clear to them that they should not be doing what they intend to do. And that when anybody, especially those who are not severely reactive, they just feel lousy, maybe they have a mild reaction, I don't own them. I don't tell them what to do. But I ask them, I ask every person, what are your intentions? What is your plan? And many times I tell them that I highly recommend you change that plan, and that you need to live your life and start noticing that you don't notice, and then work your way up from that. But the same thing goes for any exposure to any allergy. Now, there are a lot of folks that they've been fine. Now they've got an allergy to something. By the way, not everything is a strong anaphylactic reaction. Always those cases. Not a single person is ever advised to throw away their EpiPens and their Benadryls. Even if it's been gone for years and years, whatever the allergy is, not just algae, you'd be foolish to get rid of those things anyway. So, does that answer your question?
It does.
No.
It does.
Thoroughly?
It answers enough because it says that.
Let me get it right.
It says that you may notice a difference in your life, particularly people who are more impacted by environmental exposure, and that you'll have to think long and hard and notice what you notice before thinking about how that treatment may have impacted what you're able to actually ingest.
Yeah, that's right. And no one ever said it wasn't complicated. It's really complicated. It's way more complicated, I can assure you, than I want it to be. Way more complicated than a traditional allergist wants it to be, because people are allergic to probably 1,000 different things. And there are some things we gotta address them one at a time, but here's the thing, is if we can prove the effectiveness for alpha-gal, we're going to be able to help so much more. And we need numbers. We need you. We need every acupuncturist in the world to train Dr. Solomon immediately, to be able to do this. Because we also need safety in numbers. We need enough proof. We need enough people saying something works because they know it works. Because they've experienced it themselves, not because someone told them or someone told them not to.
Question for like officers, and I never thought that you're not over. I wanted to ask you.
Bring it up.
Okay, so get the treatment. I probably never, after 3 anaphylactic events, want to sit down and eat steak. My had encouraged food challenges, and I was doing it. I was too afraid. So, is there, for people like me, to get the treatment, but not, there's still advantages to getting it, even if we did not want to. So you're saying, and it works without us having to.
That is 100% correct. Yeah. So that's the fellow with the bee sting. That was just like that. I told him, don't test this. There are a lot of things you shouldn't test. There are chemicals and things that are really bad for you, things that are dangerous that you can be allergic to. By no means should you eat them. One of my sons, my 19-year-old son, who was just recently announced that instead of being a mechanical engineer, wants to follow in my footsteps and be an acupuncturist, which I've had people hounding me for years about. I'm thrilled about that. He was allergic. Dr. Solomon actually determines he was allergic to, I think, diesel fumes. Is that correct, Sheila? Diesel fumes. I don't eat diesel fumes, but you can't avoid it. Diesel fuel. Diesel engine fuel. And I think also gasoline, regular gasoline. And I understand also not everyone has noticeable, discernible allergic reactions also. Right, exactly. You don't have to eat the meat to make it work. You can never have it again, but be able to live your life not having an accidental exposure, cross-contamination, all those things. That's how people are going to know. There might be some folks that take 6 months before they know it works. They say, hey, wait a minute. I've eaten out here, I've gone to my friend's house, I've done this or that, and I've been good. Huh. How about that?
Okay, I want everybody in here to look at me. This is my doctor, and it works. I'm here to tell you it works. I've had it done. I went to my 15th and had my needle in it out, and it works.
Dr. Liebell, I think we have time for one more question, and Linda over here has had her hand up for quite a while.
I may have forgotten the question. Are all patients, do they all have the same location for the needle, for the acupuncture points, or do they differ from person to person?
Is exactly the latter. It differs from person to person. I showed you the large oval area on the ear that's called Solomon allergy zone, correlates with the liver. Our job as practitioners are to use the various techniques that Dr. Solomon developed based on Dr. Logier's work to figure out where that pinpoint spot is. So imagine a circuit breaker with 1 million circuit breakers in a box, and you gotta find the one that's flipped. It's different on every person. It is a huge area with a literally pinpoint spot. It is like finding a needle in a haystack, and then you put an actual needle in it.
And is every allergy located in the same spots as the allergy? They're all in different spots?
So it's all in different spots, person to person, every time. The practitioner's job is to figure out where is the flip circuit breaker and flip it back.
Thank you so much, Dr. Liebell. Let's give him a hand.